It is such a pleasure and honor to be here with all of you today for convocation. It is especially meaningful to have graduated here to see graduates here from bachelor's, master's, and doctoral programs in education. I graduated from Wheelock in 1975 and went on to get several masters that she just mentioned, so I'll skip that part, but became a nurse and a medical anthropologist. But over the last 30 years, in working across other continents, I've really been an educator for nurses as a consultant and doing qualitative research in collaboration with other healthcare professionals treating children and adolescents with cancer. I serve primarily as an educator and all-around gadfly to advocate for the patients, families, nurses, and physicians working in challenging circumstances. These are not easy times for educators from early childhood education to higher education. Lucy Wheelock was an educator, lecturer, writer, and translator from German to English, who founded the Wheelock Kindergarten Training School in 1888 and challenged the status quo to highlight the importance of early childhood education. Approximately half of all adults in the US today cannot read at an 8th grade level. This causes me great distress, since disparities in health, including here in the US, require health literacy for families to live healthy lives despite their environments, understand when something is wrong, know how to seek appropriate health care, understand and agree to plan treatment, and follow up on said treatment. Knowing how to find accurate information and critical thinking is a fundamental skill taught in school, and I had many excellent teachers. At Wheelock, I learned that no one is bad at everything. Everyone, young and old, is good at something. It's just sometimes hard to figure out what that person or student is good at. I learned this from Dr. Joan Bergstrom, who graded a paper quite low that I had written during my student teaching semester on a first grader who was struggling. She told me the following, quote, "I know where you went to high school, and I know you can do better than this. What you have written is only about what this child cannot do. What I expect you to write about is what this child can do, because by knowing what she can do, we can build and strengthen that which she is struggling with. I offer you the opportunity to rewrite this paper, and I will look at it again and decide if I want to change the grade," end quote. It had never occurred to me to look at the strengths of this student who was struggling, to plan a path forward for her and how best to support her to be successful. Yet this lesson has stayed with me my entire life as a teacher, nurse, and medical anthropologist. When I graduated from Wheelock with a degree that only allowed me to teach NK to 3rd grade, states across the country were closing elementary schools due to a shrinking under 5 population, since so few of my generation were having children in their early 20s, and kindergartens were the first to close. By the time I was hosting a Wheelock alumni event at my house in Washington, D.C. in the early 80s, very few of us were teaching. In the room, we had a stockbroker, a financial advisor, an HR professional, and I was working at a hospital in the admissions department. When I asked the assembled group if they regretted attending Wheelock, they unanimously agreed they did not. Everyone spoke about the skills they had learned to teach children that had served them well in their current profession, since they were generally dealing with people, and we had been trained how to communicate well with parents and guardians. We had learned how to observe behavior, to listen and to think carefully about how we presented a student's strengths and weaknesses. Personally, I discovered that when speaking to people, if you lead with something positive, even one sentence about their performance or their child's performance, they are more likely to listen to areas that need improvement. This, for example, and this will show you how old I am. John is the only one right now in our class who can tie his own shoes. This is a kindergarten. This is an important skill for a kindergartner. That said, John is struggling with allowing other students to collaborate when he is working on a structure in the block corner. If you lead with something negative, the person is most likely to stop listening right from the start. Working across cultures in the very hierarchical environment of a hospital, where nurses are not always held in high regard as authorities or asked for their opinion, I have found that leading with the positive has served me well to get others to listen. I teach pediatric oncology nurses and I use many tools. We have come a long way from blackboards, since we now have whiteboards, PowerPoints, iPads, generative AI, for example, to help us teach. However, what has not changed is the motivation, enthusiasm, and desire to teach for many in this profession. I truly believe a person is born to be an educator. You can tell who they are because when they tell you stories about their work, and even if they're telling you about a difficult circumstance in teaching, they have something nice or poignant to say about the student or the experience they had with the student. I am delighted to be in a room with so many professional educators, proud to study further and work in an ever-changing and expanding field. We need innovative educators, researchers, and advocates within classroom walls, hospitals, juvenile detention facilities, centers where English is taught as a second language. Everywhere there is someone of any age who wants or needs to learn. We need compassionate and dedicated educators to strengthen our society. BU Wheelock continues the tradition started so long ago by Lucy Wheelock to focus on the youngest students and empower them to become lifelong learners while even going further. Looking at the program offerings here, I'm impressed by the breadth. I quote from the Applied Human Development Program as an example, which, quote, trains professionals to use research and knowledge from the field of human development to develop practical interventions, policies, and programs that promote well-being, growth, and positive outcomes for individuals, end quote. What a truly rich learning environment for an educator is BU Wheelock. Thank you for choosing education and helping to make the world a better place, whether you teach in a classroom in a school building or alternative site, or even with an alternative student body. What you have learned here will likely carry you through wherever you end up, because fundamentally, you are most likely an educator by training, but also at heart. Thank you for your attention.